going to move. I'd like to introduce you to our colleague, Brian O'Toole, a Renate Network member. Brian represents Ireland on the Renate Working Board. He is based in Dublin, Ireland, and is the director of the Presentation Interprovincial Justice Desk with the Presentation Sisters Congregation. Welcome to you, Brian. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today, and you're going to present on human trafficking and the law. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you indeed, Anne, and to thank my colleagues too, who I stand and try to build a little bit on their work at the minute. But my task today is to try and introduce you to the Renate Law Task Group and how our work and what we have learned intersects and interacts with the theme of the CSW 67 conference this particular year, and relating to innovation and technological change and education in a digital age for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all. There's no doubt in listening to what you've heard before that technology can be a force for good, but equally true, technology can be a force for evil and favour the trafficker. In one way, we are hoping to use in our law task group the information technology and the internet to empower, to alert, to educate, and to connect in ways that might thwart the trafficker and interrupt the industry. What we have learned together is that human traffickers exploit the weaknesses in legislation that exist between countries, but moreover, the leaps and progress in information technology enable traffickers to continue to harm and violate with relative impunity. Importantly, we have to accept that technology favors the trafficker hugely. But one tool in our bag is our ability and our willingness to network. If you were to think of human trafficking 30 years ago, where recruitment, control, payment was an in-person transaction, but technology has changed this immeasurably. Technology allows a trafficker to live in one country, to recruit and control victims in another country, to advertise for customers in a third country, and perhaps using cryptocurrency to bank the proceeds in a fourth country. Now, if we remember that to prosecute was always difficult, but information technology now adds layers of complexity that definitely favors the perpetrators. So what we know is that weak legislation in one country might present as an opportunity to facilitate growth and increased exploitation in another. Successful prosecution demands timely cooperation that in many places doesn't exist. It also means that we must have speedy responses from big tech that Imelda referenced earlier. Taking down inappropriate, offensive, and sometimes dangerous posts or ads or websites or links or photos is complicated by the different rules of moderation of content as they apply in different countries. Such changes are too slow, and a website that's taken down can be put straight back up again in a proxy form at the push of a button. We need to think differently. We need to act quickly to bring the idea of trauma-sensitive moderation to all social media and, if possible, to the internet. This is a big ask. But technology also facilitates detection. And I reference Imelda again and her work and what she spoke about with regards to the DNA and how it helped. It allows us and it allows the police, I suppose, to conduct online searches, to gather, to monitor, to record, to store, to analyze, to facilitate an exchange of information that might perhaps interrupt the industry or and figure out who exactly is behind all of this. The UN platform, the UN Global Report on Trafficking in Persons reveals that traffickers use internet platforms with no physical, geographical limitations to advertise exploitative services masked as legitimate activities. And they can connect with large numbers of potential victims. And in doing this, they only have to be, from their point of view, they only have to be lucky once or twice in order to feel as though that they have got what they wanted. Cross-border trafficking, facilitated by technology, requires less human resources than it did before, and it enables the exploitation of victims to take place at any time and in any place. Immediately, law enforcement is at a disadvantage. Our Law Task Group commissioned the Bakita Centre for Research on Slavery, Exploitation and Abuse, working out of St. Mary's University in the United Kingdom, to undertake important research in a short time frame during COVID. And this is important. Across 6 European countries, Albania, Bulgaria, England and Wales, Germany, Romania and Spain. And the research essentially comprised of a mapping exercise to identify and to shine a light on 3 specific areas as they relate to the legal supports for victims of trafficking. And the efficient and practical use of information technology was key to the completion of this particular research. We firstly identified the extent to which there is an awareness by victims of their rights and their legal entitlements. Secondly, we queried the ability to access legal supports. And thirdly, we investigated the quality of the legal supports that are available. We did this not just to add to our body of knowledge, but also in an effort to protect. We used the internet to research, to query, to collate and interpret conclusions that led to specific recommendations. We did this as a network, offering our work as a good example of timely and effective cooperation. We learned that some countries are better than others. We learned that some countries identify those victims in the sex, only identify victims that they have found in the sex industry. Some countries ignore boys and men altogether. Some countries have no human trafficking strategy, and in some countries, victims are completely mistrustful of authority. And worse still, victims of trafficking are right to be mistrustful. It does appear that in no responding country could they claim that their legal system was trauma sensitive. So you can see that differences that exist between countries present as opportunities to traffickers. Strategic investment in information technology can make a significant difference to victims around informing victims of their rights, assessing the quality, alerting women and girls primarily to the dangers of human trafficking. Renata members have successfully used well-developed but simple apps to close down car washes and nail bar services that have enslaved. We must constantly remind ourselves that political and legislative measures are not in phase with technological advancements. In fact, there is a significant time lapse. We did this research during COVID, and this is significant given that COVID has had a chilling effect on victims of trafficking, given that they were confined to the online space by lockdown. Since COVID-19, traffickers have increasingly adapted with great agility their business models to seize new opportunities offered by advances in technology that perpetuate the profit-driven human rights abuses. In shifting recruitment, control, and exploitation to online platforms, traffickers reduce the likelihood of being detected and ensure an even greater profitability. COVID-19 has exacerbated and expanded the vulnerability of many due to the soaring use of technology in everyday life, including among children and adolescents, as Yvonne had mentioned, who are particularly at risk as they spent more unsupervised time online. During this time, there was also a rush to connect all who were not connected, recognizing the digital divide, and very often those who weren't connected are among the most vulnerable, and these are often women and girls. And so interventions promoting online safety are critical. Education of all in respect of the online space is key to reducing the number of victims, and we can do this online. Curated modules of learning that inform all on recognizing the signs, knowing what to do, hotline numbers, who to contact, how to contact, best practice and more. These have been made available online to empower and address the gender gap. Raising awareness is key. We were barely out of COVID when the war in Ukraine began. And this has created the perfect storm for those who wish to recruit, control, or exploit by rushing in to assist those who flee for their lives, only to prey on the vulnerability of women and children, as they were the only people allowed to leave Ukraine last year. What was clear, that countries were overwhelmed, and so they couldn't apply their robust legislation and safeguarding mechanisms with any degree of confidence. However, some Renata members, as Imelda pointed out, with the help of Mission Carol, were able to quickly approach Facebook and others similar, and were given thousands of dollars worth of sponsored advertisement to warn and advise of the dangers at the border, as well as offering information on what to do and who to contact. Legislation is slow to respond and is very often behind the curve. What's legal in one country is not necessarily the case in the other. What's deemed age appropriate in one country may have no such designation in another. We are now legislating for a hostile welcome, for example, in the United Kingdom, with no thought for victims. We are conflating migration and trafficking, even though we know the difference. And this way of using social media, governments and others are successfully isolating victims of human trafficking even further, which makes those victims who were hidden in plain sight almost invisible. Coming out of the initial research that was conducted during COVID, we are now working on one specific recommendation to create, maintain, and publish an online directory of services that will list the practical, family, medical, educational, advocacy, and legal services that would assist in cross-border work that seeks to support victims of trafficking. It is our intention to make information technology work for us, and we also hope to link in with other databases in this regard. The research that we have done has been the inspiration for our next piece of research. And again, the internet is key to undertaking this work, but also in implementing a new recommendation that we hope will bring about an even greater change. In all countries, there is a small but healthy pro bono legal support structure, which is very welcome, but it only represents the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's needed. The very existence and need for a pro bono network is indicative of the clear gaps in legal provision. And we know that human trafficking cases that are complicated, they're long, they're often cross-jurisdiction, they're expensive to prosecute. Fixed fees that lawyers are given often give no more than a fixed service, which may fall very far short of what's needed. Poor payment means that fewer advocates will commit to this work. There's also a significant gap of training in all aspects, in all areas of those who are involved in the legal profession with regards to looking after victims of human trafficking. There is also the other question of data gathering. We need quality, disaggregated data on the numbers of victims by sex, by age, by nationality, over specific periods of time, in a format that can be interrogated and arranged so we can compare country to country, and in this way helping us to implement the SDGs in the time that is left. Good quality data allows us to put in place good quality services. It alerts us to the gaps, to the dangers. It demands a provision, it demands an answer. Good quality data helps us to identify in a timely manner. As part of our new research, it is our intention to create and maintain a digital hub of those pro bono lawyers and their firms that we know work with victims of trafficking. We can build on this by sourcing or providing appropriate online training that will help advance the work of all advocates and legal professionals. Importantly, a hub of international lawyers offers a local expertise in each country that we hope will be a good first step to counter the cross-jurisdictional human trafficking that is perpetrated with impunity through enhanced cooperation, and that is the gift of Renata Network, living out the ideals of SDG 16 and 17, peace, justice, strong institutions, and partnership for the goals. We must remember that listening is a gift that puts us at the disposal of the victims. When we are listening, we are also consulting. genuinely seeking to draw upon the insight, the experience, as the wisdom of others. And all of this we are doing using IT for the benefit of those victims whom we hope to empower as soon as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brian, for a comprehensive and very passionate overview in relation to human trafficking and the legal obligations that we all have upon us to observe. There has